Welcome to the Work-Life Balance Podcast. I am Kara.
And I am Maggie.
Together, we're a power real estate team with the Bajetti Partners in Nashville.
We believe that the hustle culture of today's driven entrepreneur who lives and works in Middle Tennessee
requires balance. Hey guys, welcome back to Work-Life Balance with Kara and Maggie.
Welcome back.
Today we have such a special guest in the house. This is Sharon Brawner with the National Corvette Museum, and she is the CEO of that. So thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here with you girls.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. Like, I know it's been a minute we've had you on the calendar, and it's scheduling gets all crazy, but you're here now.
Yeah,
so
speaking
thank you.
of work-life balance.
Yeah,
there it is.
Right?
The schedule is insane. But
Absolutely,
that's okay.
it is.
Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Background, my dad knows her. He told me that I had to have her on the podcast, and he was definitely right. So
I know, and how lucky are we? Because I've driven by it a few times. I'm new to the South still, so yes. I have yet to stop in. But
that's okay.
Now I'm going to.
That is, that's a pretty common thing that I hear.
Okay.
You know, I've driven by it, I've thought about stopping, but yet you haven't.
Yeah.
And so it's a part of what we deal with at our museum. You know, I've been in museums for a big part of my life. 20 years at the Country Music Hall of Fame and Museum. 2
awesome.
years now at the National Corvette Museum. I grew up loving museums because my father and mother took me to lots of them.
Okay.
And that's a whole story in and of itself. But when people think of the National Corvette Museum, they think, well, if I don't own a Corvette, why would I be interested? Or I'm not a car person or whatever. And my answer is always the same. Do you love American history? Because the Corvette is the only car to be 100% manufactured in the United States.
Incredible.
Since its
I
inception.
didn't know that.
And right now, of course, it is being manufactured in Bowling Green, Kentucky.
I love it.
So when you see the big yellow sky dome, which everybody knows is that iconic thing you see on 65, they automatically equate that to Bowling Green. Sometimes they don't even realize that the assembly plant is right across the street. And that, of course, is what inspired the museum to even be headquartered there by a very passionate group of enthusiasts back in the early 90s, late 80s, who said, we need to put a museum together because this is American history. And so when I tell people that, they're like, well of course I love American history. Mm-hmm. I said, well, there's no greater story.
Yeah.
This is kind of the little engine that could, sort of.
Yeah.
Because that's why the car was even brought about. Yeah. So when the soldiers came back from the war, they'd seen all the European sports cars. Mm-hmm. Well, when they got home to America, there wasn't one. And so there became this whole discussion of America needs to do something to inspire that we're over the war, we're on our way, and only the American dream.
Wow.
And so that's how the Corvette came to be. I could spend an hour talking about that.
And we can sit here and listen to you for an hour. I love that.
It's amazing. So the car's been around now for 70 years this year.
Wow.
So it rolled off the assembly line, actually originally in Flint, Michigan, at a very, very small facility there, moved then to St. Louis, which is where it was before it came to Bowling Green.
When did it come to Bowling Green?
1981.
Okay.
And so the Corvette is manufactured there. And now 70 years later, it's the longest running nameplate of any car in America. This other one that is also running longer than that happens to also be a Chevrolet product, the Suburban.
Okay.
It's pretty interesting. Right. So, our museum, yes, of course, beautiful, beautiful cars, but some pretty amazing stories. And that's what's the beauty of museums, is that you might come for one reason, but you'll leave with hopefully many, many other reasons why.
Right.
You're glad you came and that you'll actually come back. So
and across the street is you get to actually drive them and do the track, right?
You got it. So
oh my gosh, that sounds fun.
The NCM Motorsports Park. So we're the only place on this side of the Mississippi where you can actually drive a Corvette before you buy it.
Okay.
Really?
Right now, the Corvette for many years has been on an order-only basis. It used to be when I was a kid, which we won't talk about that, but you could find them on the showroom floor, but you can't anymore. So you can come take a drive. You can go as fast as you want to, as slow as you wish. You can have a professional driver with you to give you a high-performance driving experience, which I'm getting ready to do for the first time.
Oh, buckle up.
I bet you're
scary.
Yeah, October 21st. It's a ladies-only high-performance driving education experience. So
that's going to be
it's going to be way cool.
Yes.
I can't wait. And everybody said, oh, I guess you're driving the new C8, which, if you know anything about Corvettes, they come in generations. The current car is the C8. The 8th generation, and I said, no, I want to drive the C7 because that's what I drive.
Okay.
And so you're supposed to bring your own car, and I went, no, I'm not driving my Corvette on the track, but they have cars, of course, for us to utilize and pay additional fee for that. What's cool about it is it's not only is it a C7, but it's also a 5-speed. So I'm all about driving an actual clutch. Yeah. So I'm excited about that because I grew up driving those kind of cars. So
that's so exciting.
Not me. I'm like,
yeah, I'm more like just get in, put it in drive, and go.
Just go. I know.
That's right.
But
when you grow up with my kind of dad, you learn to drive a clutch before you drive anything else. So
yes, fair enough.
That's the way it works.
Fair enough. But okay, so tell us how you got here. So you're CEO of the National Corvette Museum. So what was your experience until this point?
Oh my word. It's been an interesting journey. You know, I mean, it depends on how far back you want me to go.
Yeah, that's up to you.
You know, so I spent about 12 years in the hotel industry, in sales, eventually in marketing. And I fell into that, to be candid. If I took you all the way back from college, I literally landed as a secretary, as we called it back in the 80s. In a hotel sales office, and I rather liked it. And they couldn't keep me busy because I could type really fast. And so I said, well, can I learn to do that? Well, can I learn to do that? And so eventually the job just kept morphing, and eventually I got into truly selling hotel rooms for corporate business. And I really didn't understand the convention industry. And eventually I went to bigger hotels in different markets, and I learned the convention side of it, and I loved it. And so I love to travel. I've always loved to travel. And going to different attractions, museums, what does a city really bring to someone is something I just naturally love because of my parents. And I never really thought about it being a life. I never thought about it being a career. You know, the hotel, hospitality, tourism industry, today there's degrees for that.
I was going to ask, is that your degree, is hospitality?
No, they didn't have such stuff.
Yeah.
In the 80s, you got to remember how old I am. So
well, I just thought you were about my age, so.
So no, that really wasn't even a thing.
Yeah.
The industry existed, but not, you know, professional degrees or anything of that nature. So no, I fell into it, and I loved it. And so I stayed in it for, like I said, about 12 years. And in doing that, you really begin to see, one, a lot of the world, and two, you start to find different ways to engage with it. And so I left the hotel industry after I got to Nashville. I've done San Antonio, I did Dallas, I've done Louisville.
Oh, wow.
All of my travels were in Chicago, Washington, D.C., New York. So I got to see a lot of the world, as I said, and
all over.
Decide what I really wanted to get into. And so when I came to Nashville, I came to work for the Opryland Hotel. This was still when it had the park, TNN, the Nashville Network, which some of your listeners may never have heard of, CMT, which didn't look like it does now. It actually was a video channel back in the day, spun out of MTV when it was all rock and roll.
I remember that.
And so it was in its height when I was there, and the hotel was already 1,900 rooms, and I was with the team at the time when we decided to add the last expansion to the Opryland Hotel, which I think brings it to like 2,900 rooms.
It's an amazing place.
Wow. It's crazy.
So overwhelming a little bit.
It is a little overwhelming. Yeah. You know, so you had the original Magnolia lobby and then the conservatory, and then we added the Delta. And when we decided to add the Delta, I was like, you know, I think this is too big. It doesn't feel like a family.
Yeah.
So I love the place. I still love going there. But I decided it was time to do something else. So then I switched over to the corporate offices at Gaylord Entertainment. That's when I got into sponsorship marketing. And I really loved it. I really wanted to get into marketing. And then I left there, and I took a total left turn and went to professional sports.
Wait, what?
Yep, went to professional sports.
You
have the hat of the boss babe of all boss babes right now. Oh my God.
Oh my gosh.
I love this.
Yeah,
this is incredible.
So I went to arena football, of all things. It was new to Nashville. It had been here a year. And the guy who started off as the president and general manager went on to start another team. And it's a long story. I won't give you the whole detail of how I came to know all of these folks, but I did. And their ownership said, would you ever consider working for the team? And I said, it depends on what it is. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, one thing led to another, and then I became the president of the team. I'd never been in that type of position before, but they needed the professional components of it. Gosh. You know, there's the fun of the sport, but then there's business. Yeah. And you got to run the business.
You got to run the business.
You got to have ticket sales. You got to have corporate sponsors. You have to do the marketing. You've got to do game operations to make it a fun environment for all your guests. Well, that was, everything. I love party planning, so it was nothing but a party. If you've never been to an arena football game, I highly recommend it. But it was probably the funnest job I've ever had. I had a really amazing group of young people that, we didn't pay really particularly well, but we had a big, fun time. Mm-hmm. And those young people and I committed to making sure we had sold-out games, great experiences for our guests, and we absolutely loved it. So I did that for a couple of years. And then we did our job so well that the ownership sold the team to Atlanta. Nice. And there's a lot of stories in between there. And then I went to the Nashville Sounds, and I did that for a year. Didn't particularly love it. It was when it was still at its old ballpark. Okay. I loved the job. I didn't care for some of the other components of the job per se. We needed a new ballpark, and anyway. So then I was, all the while I'm married and having kids, and I had my second baby while I was at the Sounds. I got pregnant with Addison, and I just really wasn't loving it. And I thought, you know what, I can do something different. I'm going to figure that out while I'm on maternity leave. And so I did. And that's when I landed at the Country Music Hall of Fame and Museum and stayed there for 20 years.
Incredible.
So a little bit of a long story, but there it is.
But it's like so much building blocks, like where you're at now, right?
100%.
And I mean, we can go back to this too, because it's like you just said it, you're raising children. You're the president of sports teams. You're doing all these things. Like, how many hats can you wear? And be a really good mom and be a good, everything. Be good at all of it at once, right? Right. So, like, obviously, I have 3 children, and I'm still trying to figure it out. You know, like, how do you run a brokerage and be a mom and be a good wife and all the things? Mm-hmm. So we talk about, like, she's young and she doesn't have all those hats yet. So when we talk to people like you or me, it's like, okay, what are the tips and tricks of that? Like, how does that even look? And how do you manage all that where something doesn't fall short? Or, like, it's just, how do you be the best at all of it when you've got so many things going on?
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing you have to remember is cut yourself a break.
Yeah.
Okay? You can't be, I say to people all the time, I've told my girls this, they can quote it to you. There is no such thing as perfection. It doesn't exist. And so stop trying to be perfect. And who are you trying to be perfect for?
I love that question right there. Yep.
So you don't need to measure yourself against what you see on Instagram, because most of that is not really real. We want people to see that side of our life and think it's so wonderful, when behind the scenes there's so much more. We all know that.
We call that the highlight reel. We say it all the time. Yes. You want the highlight reel of, like, the good times? Well, show me when you're sad.
Right.
Show me when things suck.
Exactly. You got it.
Like
exactly. So, not only to add to all those wonderful opportunities that I've had, I was shown to have a high work ethic. Mm-hmm. My parents, hardworking people, went to high school, no college, just hardworking. Mm-hmm. Daddy worked 2 jobs most of my life. Mom was the one who kept pushing all of us to be more, do more. That was her role for sure. And so I tend to be out of balance, to be candid. Because I know I have to work. Mm-hmm. So what I was going to tell you was that for a big chunk of my life, I was a single mom.
Okay.
Big chunk. Okay. And so let's just add more to the plate, right? Yeah. So, it was hard. It was really hard. And I had to tell my team in any of my jobs, hey, look, I'm all yours from 7 in the morning until 7 at night. And at 7 at night, don't call me anymore unless it's burning down.
I need to be a mom.
Because now I've got to put dinner on the table. I've got to make sure the homework is done. I've got to get baths. I've got to get them in bed.
100%.
And then if it's that important, you can call me after 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Or email me or whatever. Yeah. And so I just had to carve that out. Now, that was pretty minimal.
That's very minimal. And it's like we
3
say it before,
hours.
like that's when your second job kicks in as a parent. Yeah.
So, you know, it really probably should have been more like 5 or 6, right? But I had to extend some. So while I'm cooking, I could still talk on the phone. I could still manage things when they were big enough to kind of do their own thing. But so, yeah, it's really hard. And you're constantly tired. You're constantly second-guessing yourself. You have an amazing guilt trip when you're trying to be a mom, first of all. Try being a single mom and manage a staff and be responsible for millions of dollars. And you've got a staff that if you don't do well, then they're not going to have a job. So you've got that pressure added on. There's all of those needs.
So much weight.
So much weight.
Yeah. And let's not act like you didn't have huge roles at your job while doing all of this. Like, you weren't a receptionist at this time, you know.
No, she's got a team and they're all depending on her.
Yeah.
So did you find, like, what was, like, an outlet for you? Did you ever get to unplug and really just, like, hey, I'm going to make a vacation a priority with the kids? Or did you ever have, like, something that just kind of took you out of that, I'm going to take that hat off and just be really present with the kids for this week? Or
Always.
Okay.
Always. So that's why, again, though, I said from 7 to 10, don't bother me.
Right.
I'm here. I'm 100% mom. Same thing with vacations. Even though I was a single mom, often when I was first single, my parents would go on vacation with us. I couldn't afford to go by myself. And plus I wanted 2 other hands helping me with 2 little girls. And so that happened a lot, which were great memories, great memories. And then eventually I got to where I could handle it. And so we always went on a summer vacation. We always did something on spring break, and we always did something on fall break.
Love that.
Christmas always had. A really great person gave me great advice. It's hard to divorce. It's really hard to do all those things. But you have to make new memories, new traditions, and have a healthy relationship with their dad, making sure they continue their traditions, knowing that neither is perfect, but both can be really great. Yeah. And so we did that. And when I look back on it, do I wish I'd worked a little less? Probably so, yeah. But did the girls understand that Mommy had to work? And did I take them to work? You bet I did. They loved coming to work. They saw me in my element. Best story ever. Yeah. Took my girls to work, and my CEO, Kyle Young, at the Country Music Hall of Fame, we're still great friends today. And I would bring the girls in on summer, you know, or whatever. And they would go with me to meet with Kyle. And so they watched me in action all the time. Well, as they got older, they would have opinions of, Mommy, you really ought to think about doing this at the museum, or you ought to do that. This when they were little all the way to when they got bigger. And so one time in particular, they went in and had their own meeting with Kyle and gave him suggestions of what they thought they needed to do.
Okay, true testament to you as a strong mom teaching your daughters to be strong boss ladies. That is
100%.
hands down, you can't ask for better.
No.
Well, let me ask you
incredible.
something. How did you keep like that fire and that drive going through all of that? Because I feel like a lot of people, we talk about people burning out quite a bit. And that's something that you really have to avoid, and it's hard as a mom. So how did you keep that drive, and how did you keep that work ethic?
Well, you know, again, like I told you a moment ago, it's just instilled in me to work and to do well.
Right.
If you're going to do it right.
That's right.
You know, go big or go home, as we say today. But Mom and Dad were that way. We didn't sit around twiddling our thumbs. We were always doing something. I grew up in rural Kentucky, so... you know, when work was done, the normal work, then it was come home and we were working in the garden, or we were canning vegetables, or we were, you know, crocheting this or macrameing that, or whatever. We were constantly doing something. Even when it was something fun, it was still something that we needed to do. Did we sit around and watch movies and do other things? Sure, of course. We raced cars, we flew airplanes, we rode motorcycles, we pulled tractors. We were always into a major hobby, which could seem like work to the outsider, but we loved it, and we did it together. That was one thing people ask me all the time. I'm an only kid. Like, oh, you must have been spoiled, must have been this or that. No, actually I wasn't. We didn't have a whole lot, you know. I mean, we made with what we did, and Mom and Dad were successful, and yes, they became more as time went on. But whatever we did it together.
I love that.
They never left me home, ever. If I couldn't go to something, if it just wasn't appropriate, maybe, I'd stay with my grandmother who lived right next door. I never had a babysitter in my life. I didn't know what that was like. And that's pretty rare.
Yeah.
And so, when I got off the bus, nobody was at home. They were at work, but my granny was right next door. And I learned to do things on my own. So self-independence allows you to understand that all your life.
Right.
There's a lot of articles being written right now about, how much people do for their kids, and they aren't giving them that sense of independence. How do I manage myself? Those things are super important.
They're very important.
So when you ask me how do I not burn out, I never did. I just knew I needed to do it.
Yeah.
I had to do it. Even when I was really tired, I couldn't let my girls see me be not able.
Yeah.
So if there's any motivation, it was them, always. To show them that it's okay. Life's going to throw you a curveball.
Yeah.
And it hurts. And yes, this isn't easy. But as long as we stick together, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. Sure. And so you just keep putting one foot in front of the other and keep going. Eventually, as far as my job at the Country Music Hall of Fame, I definitely got burnout at the very end, which is why I left. It was one of those things everybody's like, "You're leaving? What?" And
you were there for 20 years, you said, right?
Yep.
So, that's a long time.
Yeah. So when I gave notice and eventually we told everybody else, everybody went into shock. They're like, "What are you doing? What do you mean you're not going to be here?"
Don't leave.
Because I really,
shock.
It really was. And it was for the staff. It was for our board, that I wasn't going to stay and retire from there. And I got burnt out. I admit it, on the job. Now, the girls were already in college. I mean, life had already gone on. And there were times during the job that I'd think I need to go. I'd get frustrated or whatever. We all get frustrated at work. But because of Kyle and his willingness to allow the flexibility, he knew I needed that flexibility. I could give you story after story of the times that I would go to him and say, "I need to do this with my kids. Will you work with me?" And his answer was always yes. So I couldn't give that up. Even when I would get frustrated at something or tired of XYZ, there were so many things that made it work for me that I persevered and just kept on pushing. And then eventually I did get burnt out, and it wasn't fun anymore. And it was time to move on, and I didn't know how to let it go because I loved it. I loved it so
I could only imagine.
much. I did, and I still do.
Yeah.
That becomes your family. I mean, at that point, you're with those people and the people you work with more than you are your actual family.
You better believe it.
Yeah.
And because my kids had grown up there, literally, and they know all those people, they all know, you know what I mean?
Yes.
That whole thing, I didn't know how to let it go. And my husband, Eddie's, came in one afternoon. This is during COVID still. And we had to cut back a bunch of staff. We paid them for as long as we could. And after being closed for months, and it would be months more, we had to let folks go. Now, we gave everyone proper, what's the word I'm looking for? I just went blank. Severance.
Severance packages, yeah.
So, we treated everyone extremely well. I got to tell you, for 2 days, letting 35 people go was the hardest thing I've ever done.
Especially during COVID when everybody's already kicked to the ground.
Right, and you're
now
on
you've
a
lost
screen
the job. Yeah.
telling somebody who's maybe worked there 10 years.
I know, it's tough.
15 years. Some 5, some 2, but still. And it was horrible.
Especially when you have a connection with those people.
You better believe it.
Yeah.
That dang near killed me. So I went on beyond that before I finally hung it up. But he came in one afternoon, and I had just gotten off of a meeting call, and I was crying, and he said, "Sharon, I've watched you work really hard while we've been married, and I know you love it, and we talk about you leaving, and then you keep going, but today's the day, honey. I'm not gonna let you keep doing this anymore. Yeah. Pick a date on the calendar."
Wow.
I said, but, and he said, "I want to hear it. We'll figure it out."
Yeah.
And so I did, and it was that shocking moment for all those folks. And, you have people who say, "Oh, my gosh, if you leave, I'll leave." No, you're not. No, you're not. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's very kind. I appreciate the fact that you think that much of me, my leadership, my, whatever. But I said, "Please don't. I need you to stay here and keep fighting the good fight. Do the work, put in more of what we built. because I'm going to stand back and be really, really proud. Yeah. And I am. And so it was hard to leave, but it was the best decision. And I didn't have a job.
Yeah. So how did you fall into the museum?
So the scariest part, like I said, was leaving that I didn't have a job.
Right? Oh, I bet.
And I've never not had
You've
a
never
job.
not had a job.
For you.
I mean, I've been working since I was 14.
Yeah.
And by the way, I made my girls get a job at 14, too.
I mean, I made my kids get a job at 14, too.
I got a job at 14, too.
That's right. That's right.
Well,
There you go.
there you go.
So
Like,
it's
work
the work
ethic.
ethic.
Yes. I feel like that is just something that you just have it instilled in you. It's not, I don't know. I don't know if it's necessarily learned from like an older age. Like I don't think you're 20, 30 and get work ethic. I think it's something that either your parents instill in you, you're born with, or you're not born with.
We say it, that it's an innate trait.
It is.
And you can't teach hustle. And you can't teach like people that are really going to grind and
you have
work.
to see it.
You got to see it. And I can't, like we talk about like even in real estate, like there's so many different kind of realtors, right? The ones that are really going to go bust their butt for you and the other ones that are like, where's the easy deal? No, like, come on. Like, you either got that fire in your heart that you're going to pound through all of this, or you don't. And I can't teach it to you. So, just sorry. Like, this isn't going to work for you, right? So, anyways, that's a sidebar on innate trait, which is you have it.
But it's
I
true.
have it.
I mean,
you have it.
you've watched it, right? You know, so I know your dad, and he is a hustler. He's gonna get stuff done, and he's gonna find unique ways to make money, whatever it takes to provide for his family, to also support the habits he has of duck hunting and all the other things he does with my husband. But it's true. I mean, whatever it is you want, you have to do the work. Nobody gets to do it for you. And so if you're watching, you have to model it for your children. So clearly my parents did. I turned around and did it for my girls. And I can see it now already with Shelby, with Harper, who's only 3. You know, she understands Mommy's got to go work. Daddy's got to go work. That's what we do. We get up, we go to work, and then we come together as a family. We try to have dinner together every night. All the things, go to the baseball games or whatever it is they're doing. And so you got to be there as much as you can. You can't make them all. There were certainly ball games that I did not get to go to every ball game and watch my girls either play basketball or cheerlead. But I made a bunch of them. And I made sure they got to practice. I made sure they got home. I made sure they had a snack. I mean, like, you can just keep going, right? Yeah. And so there's a lot of reflection now that Shelby is a mom, that she can appreciate a lot more of the things that I did back then than she did in the moment. And you just have to wait for that to come back around. And I think we all can say that about looking back on our childhood.
100%.
You know, so.
You don't really remember, I don't remember my parents being at that game. No, I remember them being at the games.
That's right.
Right? I don't think unless.
A specific game.
Yes.
Right.
I don't think you focus on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So to go back to your question of how did I wind up where I am today. So, you know, I remember it very specifically on that Friday that I hung up my last meeting. It was March the 13th. And as we got ready, I gave 90 days notice. Obviously, I'd been there a long time, and I told them I'd stay as long as they wanted me to stay and tie things up and hand it off to the next person or whatever. Right. So we had decided we would go on a vacation immediately. So we had the car already packed, and we went on a 2-week driving vacation. I've never taken 2 weeks off in my life. Are you kidding me? And so I was on call with the museum for another 3 months. So, but I told them, so I'm going to take 2 weeks off, and then I'll be available if you need questions or whatever. And so to literally take the phone and turn it off and put it in a drawer. I mean, it's
don't
like
even know
detox.
what that looks like. Yeah,
no.
I mean, I kept reaching for it. Like, it was odd that I didn't have to answer emails. My phone wasn't chiming one right after another. It was odd. I will admit.
Probably felt free.
It was weird.
Yeah.
Yes, I felt free, but I also felt like, well, now what?
Wait, nobody needs me?
Nobody needs me. It was weird. I'm going to tell you. I would challenge anybody to take just even 2 days and don't answer the phone.
I know.
I can look at each other like,
I'm telling you, it makes you understand what's really the priority or not. Being present.
Being present.
You said that a moment ago. It's a buzz phrase for sure. I have to tell you, my daughter Addison, she's better at it than I am by far. Yeah. She will put her phone down and she will not answer it. I mean, she can prioritize, I got to study for law school, or I want to be with my mom or my grandmother or whoever she's with. I got to give it to her.
Wow.
She can put it down. She does not have it in front of her. I really respect that. And most young people today can't do that. They can't.
Oh, my gosh.
To the tune, sometimes I'm like, hello, I need an answer. Where are you? Yeah. But she'll get to me, and I know that she will. And so there's those moments you really need them. So I did the 2-week thing. It was great. It made me stop and reflect on what's important. Eddie and I had a wonderful time. We went from Airbnb to Airbnb, bread and breakfast, whatever. We went to the coast. We did all the different things. We talked a lot about that this moment would allow us to consider what would retirement look like. Now, we're not that old, but we're not that young. And so I just turned 59, and he just turned 60. And, of course, this has been a couple of years ago now. And so I said, we'd been on vacation 3 or 4 days, and I said, we're walking along the beach, and I asked him, I said, what does retirement look like to you? You're putting all this money in 401k. We're doing all the things we're supposed to do. What are we going to do? Yeah. Exactly. And he said, I don't know. I've never thought about it. And I said, well, then what are we putting all this money away for? If we don't know what we're going to do. And I'm a planner. I'm a planner about everything, maybe too much sometimes, but I feel like that way I don't waste time, which comes from that work ethic thing, even to plan to have fun. Yeah. And I think that's a big part of how you get to work-life balance, is that everything in my life is scheduled. Now, I've been given a lot of grief about that over the years, but I plan for having fun. And I plan to work in the garden, and I plan to go have lunch with friends or with my mother or whomever. You have to plan. Make the time. Put it on the calendar.
Put it on the calendar. Yep.
Because we're all so busy. If you don't, then you don't ever do it. Yeah. And so that's when I said, well, you better think about it. So 3 or 4 days later, we're walking along the beach. I said, did you think about what I said? And he goes, yeah. And he said, well, what do you think? And I said, I think I want to play golf. And, of course, my husband loves golf.
Oh, you just made his dreams come true.
Are you kidding me? He literally went down on one knee and he said, will you marry me again? And so I had played when I was young, and I gave it up, of course, like most women have to. We get married, we have kids, we got a career, blah, blah, blah. I can't afford it, don't have time for it. It's a 4-hour commitment.
It's a commitment.
If not more. And so I said, I think I want to pick it back up, now that the girls are, out of school and doing their thing, and it'd be something that we can do together, and we can do it till we're really, really old, as long as our bodies will hold up. But I see people playing golf in their 80s and 90s.
Oh, yeah.
And he said, all right, let's do it. And so I started taking lessons while I was off, and love it, absolutely love it. We play every Sunday, unless it's just pouring down rain. We're out there, and even in the cold. So it's just a thing we committed to. And it's,
like you said, do it together.
We do it together.
It's a wonderful hobby to have.
And he's a great caddy, and gives me great coaching. And some things he's like, we're going to have to go back to your pro, who's Nancy Corsolino, who's awesome, out at Springhouse, back to Arbyland. Yeah. And we love it. And so anyway, went through that whole time period. So I started networking, calling the people I know. I had completed the Leadership Nashville class of 2019, and so that's an automatic kind of fraternity that you're in when you go through that program. Outstanding program.
What is that?
Leadership Nashville. They have it in Bowling Green. There's Leadership Bowling Green. I'm about to sign up for Leadership Kentucky, so that you actually study your entire state, understanding the economics of the state, the other components of the community of the state. Wow. So you do it in your local community. So I did it here in Nashville. It's highly competitive to get into.
Is this the one that Angela Profit's in?
I don't think so.
She is?
Yes.
Okay, and there's 2 levels. Like, there's my age, but then there's the younger ones, right?
Yep, you have a YP.
Okay.
Yes, okay, because I did look into.
Could be, but I'm because I happen to know her, but
it
could be she's done both.
I don't know. But yes, we love her too. Oh my goodness, love her. She came on our podcast.
I highly recommend any type of leadership program like that if you have one in your city, state, whatever. I've committed having all of my folks at the Corvette Museum that are in my leadership team to go through it. We've got our second person going through it now. Okay. Because you meet people from all walks of life. You know, they very carefully select the group to make sure you're from all different avenues of business, backgrounds. There'll always be religion talk, diversity of every kind. It's very thoughtfully crafted as who's going to be in your class.
Okay.
And then you're put through basically a school year's worth of work. Once a month, you're gone for at least a full day, if not sometimes two. And you're going into, like, one day was, Criminal Justice Day, and we actually went into the jail in Davidson County. We were with district attorneys. We did all of these different things around justice, not just on the law side, but also on true justice for those who cannot get proper representation. Sure. All of these. You want to talk about impactful.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
It makes you understand just how small of a speck you are in the grand story of it all. So anyway, I completed that. So I utilized those contacts, obviously, and all the myriad of other people just to say, this is the journey I'm on. And if you can spend a moment with me, help me network to another group of people. Everybody kept saying, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I don't know. I really don't. Yeah. I just will know it when I find it. Yeah. Obviously, I love to lead. I like to know that the work I'm doing makes a difference. The nonprofit component when I went to the Hall of Fame was very intentional on my part. When I actually got the job at the Country Music Hall of Fame, I was blessed to actually have 2 job opportunities presented to me at the same time. One was going to the Country Music Hall of Fame. I started off as a director of sales. It was not any high elevated position. It was at that point. Sure. And I had the opportunity to be the executive director of the Tennessee Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. Wow. So small organization, but needed that leadership, heavy volunteer base, all of those things. I just didn't think I was really as ready to lead that as I needed to be. But I had the job. They flew me to Washington,
Incredible.
The whole thing, because you'd be a part, obviously, of the National Cystic Foundation. And country music is my thing. And so that's who I am. And so it was a pretty easy decision, actually, and clearly was the right one. So I wanted to go into nonprofit. I wanted to see what it was like. It's one thing to think you're pretty good at something when you've got money to work with and you got staff to work with. It's another one to do it when you're broke. Yep. And you have very few resources. And I just wanted the challenge. And so going into the Country Music Hall of Fame provided me with that. We were very much in debt when I started there. I started in October. Matter of fact, this week would have been my 22nd anniversary. Wow. I started there in October of 2001. So think about that, right after 9/11. And they had just opened that brand new building in May. So all of the pro formas, all of the anticipation was completely shattered by this one day. And we had to rebuild, and we were about $35 million in debt.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. So when I look back on it, I think, why on earth did I sign up for that?
Yeah.
But it did everything I wanted to do.
Sure
it
did.
challenged me to learn in a way that I had never been challenged before. And so, we're all motivated by different things, right? And so Kyle figured out pretty early on, all he had to say to me when I came to him with an idea or this is the goal I want to set for us to be able to earn these ticket sales or retail or whatever I was doing, and he'd say, I just don't think that's possible, Sharon. Well, that was the magic word.
Yeah.
All you had to do was tell me it couldn't be done, and then I would set about trying to figure out how to make sure I did. I was like, okay, just watch me.
Challenge accepted.
Right. And so he figured that out, and it was fun. And we made a great partnership over the years, and the job just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's what his vision was, and he told me that during the interview. And so I was like, I'm in. So it became a 20-year career that really prepared me for what I'm doing now at the National Corvette Museum. You said something earlier about looking back on all the stepping stones. And when I got the job at the National Corvette Museum, it was definitely an introspective moment. for a lot of reasons. You know, you've heard me talk about my mom and dad quite a bit. You know, I lost my dad in 2019. It was a profoundly important moment, obviously. But when I got this job, I grew up loving cars, anything with an engine. You heard me talk about that earlier. So Daddy's dream car was the Corvette. And as I told you before, we didn't have a lot when I was little. But then eventually, the day came when we could afford to buy one. And he let me go with him. We went to the Chevy dealership in Elizabethtown, Kentucky. They had one sitting on the showroom floor. I watched him negotiate the deal. It's quite a story in and of itself. And when the deal got struck, we went back to pick up the car, and he let me drive it off the showroom floor.
Wow.
So
Full circle.
Couple that to where I am today. And he went on to own 3 Corvettes in his lifetime. And I always thought it would be the perfect dream car. Yeah. Whatever Daddy liked, that's what I liked. Yeah. It's just the way it worked. And so the only thing that would make this job more perfect is if he were here with me.
Sharing that with you, yes.
To share in this moment. And, you know, when you're a woman running a museum, it's pretty rare, first of all. Most museums are ran by men, generally white men. Very rare is it a woman. So that's the first mark. And then the second one is a car museum.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can imagine there were a lot of skeptics of, you know, they just put her there because they wanted a DEA hire or DEAI hire or whatever. And I had to tell Eddie to calm down because he wanted to run into my rescue. And I said, it'll be all right. They'll figure it out.
They'll figure it out.
You know, it won't take people long to understand that I'm a car girl. And no, I don't know everything about the Corvette. I don't know everything about its history. I didn't about country music either, but nobody questioned why that made sense. So it's just different. You know, people look at it differently. And I'm having a grand time.
I can only imagine.
And, but that whole introspective I was talking about of when they called and said, we want to offer you the job, I cried because I really wanted the job. I really, really wanted the job. And I've been spending my whole life preparing for it.
There you go.
That's incredible.
So
that is,
circle.
like you said it full circle, and that's just an amazing story. And having your dad, like all of it, it's so sentimental.
Very much so.
And it sparked a new fire, and I love that. You found something that, you know, you're really passionate about. Obviously, when you were talking about it earlier at the very beginning of the episode, you could just see how passionate you were about it. That was like prior to, you know, now knowing why you're so passionate about it. But, I mean, you could really see it just coming across. So, I mean, I'm sure that your employees and everybody that works with you knows that too.
Well, I appreciate that. You know, I've been told all my career, no matter what I was doing, you're really passionate about what you do. And that's a cornerstone for me. And I think it needs to be for everybody. Again, going back to your podcast title of work-life balance, you've heard the old phrase, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life.
There it is.
And so that keeps you from burnout. That keeps you from not feeling balanced. Because if you really love it, is it really work? No. So most people never have that. My daddy told me over and over again all of my life, no matter what my job was, because I loved it, because I was into it, even when I was not making a lot of money. But if I loved the job and I loved the drive to find the next level, to learn more, and I'm not talking about always a promotion.
Sure.
Let's go all the way back to what I was saying earlier about the very first job I had out of college as a secretary in an office in a hotel. Right. You know, the good Lord planted me there. I could have landed a job like that anywhere. Sure did. But I believe that you absolutely have a higher power who is pushing you from one place to the next, even when it sucks. There's a reason why he's putting you through that. I believe that. Maybe not others do, but I do.
Embrace the suck.
Yeah, embrace it, because there's a reason you need to learn the lesson, whatever it is. And so with knowing that I got placed in that office, because I could type so fast, it couldn't keep me busy. I said, well, can I learn that? Can I learn that? And so you have a thirst for learning, right? Again, it goes back to the work ethic. So it's one thing to work hard, it's another one to work smart, and it's yet another one to work fun.
I love that.
So
That's exactly right.
if you can combine all that together, again, it really is true. So those cliches that we hear of, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life, you're like, yeah. But it's true.
It's true. We actually just talked about that when we were doing a recap on our the first 50 seasons, and I've been in this business for 20 years, and we were talking about burnout, and she goes, well, have you ever felt burnout? And not with real estate. Never have I ever I'm dreading to walk in the door today.
Right.
No, it's not a job to me. It's my career. And I've always made it something that I enjoy, and there's fire and passion and everything behind it. So I want that for everybody. You know, you want your kids to have that and find that, you know, even when you're going to college to get a degree, I don't care if you do anything with that degree.
No.
I just want the experience of it. I want you to find something that really lights your fire. And whatever it is, I don't care what it is.
Right. Agreed.
Do it.
I told my girls that going to college was discipline.
Yes.
It's understanding the discipline it takes to get up, go into class,
Get
do
it
the
done.
hard work, and get through the whole thing to get to the other side.
I think so.
Whatever your degree is, it really doesn't matter unless you're trying to be a
Doctor,
doctor or,
yes.
you know, like Addison, she wants to be an attorney. So, yes, she had a path, but she didn't take the traditional path of pre-law. She went political science.
Okay.
Because it gave her diversity, too,
Absolutely.
of options. I said, you know,
Do
you think
anything.
you want to be a lawyer, you might not at the end of this, and that's okay.
Exactly.
So think about lots of options, and I think that's a lot of what we need to do with young people today is we need to coach them on, you don't have, I've just recently went back to Western because that's where I went to college, and I want to, you know, be as impactful in the community as I can. So I went to an early tourism class. They asked me to come and speak to them. And so before I even got into what is tourism and why are you picking this and blah, 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 I said, how many of you are freshmen, sophomore, junior, seniors, whatever. So it was mostly a class of sophomores. And so I said, okay, I assume that most of you in here are probably 18, 19 years old. You're in that spot. So how many of you have declared a major? And like 2 people raised their hand. And I said, you know what? Good for you guys. And the rest of you, calm down. It's okay. You're 18. You're 19. You do not have to have this figured out. And I said, so for every person who keeps asking you that daggone question, tell them, I don't know.
Yeah.
And that I'm in school and I am going to figure it out. And I said, and so stop worrying about it. And they all just busted out laughing. And I said, but it's true. What do you know? You're 18.
You don't. And take a little class in each thing and figure it out.
Figure it out.
I went undeclared, but like when my son is at Mississippi State, they wanted to know what's he declaring right off the bat, which he's ag engineering. Since he's been a baby, that's all he's ever wanted to do is ag. Right. So that was easy. But my other ones, they don't know what they want to do. Can we just call it general ed for now? Like just get in there, figure it out, take us some classes.
Right.
It
will come.
Yes, but the whole point is set the intention, follow through, and finish the job.
That's right.
That's all I care about college. You're going to do it. You're going to network. You're going to meet people. And you're going to come out with something that no one can take from you.
That's right.
And that's your
education.
Get
the experiences of life.
And go
be a
darn
college
fun.
student.
Yeah. Well, I even said the other day, like, I don't think that I would have been prepared to do like what we're doing now if I would not have gone to college first.
No.
I could not be where I'm at or do what I'm doing if I didn't have that time to actually grow up, like figure out how to pay bills and live on your own.
That's
and
right.
Absolutely.
And go to class and have responsibilities and all of the thing. Because I could not have just gone straight into what we're doing and been as like diligent as I've needed to be.
And structured. And I mean, you're very planner. You're all that stuff. And I think that comes with college education.
Absolutely.
No, mom's not waking you up to get to class.
That's right.
So you're on your own. And you got to
No.
figure out what you're eating and you got to get your homework done.
And if you don't go, you deal with the consequences.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what a lot of people I feel like don't know now. And a lot of people now just don't, I don't want to put a blanket statement, but they don't have the work ethic. Like you can see it in you can see it in you and a lot of other people. But there's just so many, even people that I know in my age group that just don't care to work.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's social media and technology and things taking over where they don't have to work. But I mean, I saw my dad like working, doing everything that they could.
Right.
My mom, same thing. So I don't know what the disconnect is, but
I can remember Addison and Shelby both telling me that I can remember when they were 12, 13, and I said, next summer, when you're 14, you're getting a job.
Uh-huh.
Now, granted, it was harder on me than it
Driving.
was them getting them there, getting them home. I spent more money in fuel getting them back and forth than they made at their job. But it was the point of making them do it. To understand what a resume looked like at that age, how to fill out a job application. There are some practical life skills that I just don't think a lot of folks are making their kids learn early enough. But anyway, I can go off on a whole tangent about that. But
and value of $1.
We could and we
yes.
have.
So just the whole, and that's a cliche statement also, but you know what? There's some truth to that.
Yeah, till it's your dollar.
You need to know what the value of
Right.
$1 is because you earned that. Like,
That's
you
right.
didn't just ask me for it. Like, how that, you know, if you're only making $12 an hour or whatever, doing
Yeah.
some work on a farm like my son does, but that took you an hour to make. But you want me to give you 20 to go get a Chipotle or what, Panda. You know
That's
what?
right.
That, you busted your butt for that money an hour ago, didn't you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
so it's a little change of pace.
It is.
But it's good.
So anyway, they would come home and they would tell their friends, you know, that I've got to get a job or I'm going to get a job or I got to go to work or whatever. And all of their friends are like, you have to work? Like, yeah, you do.
You do.
And so there were some that worked and there were quite a few that didn't. And I think that we need to reevaluate that as we move on into the future. We have a whole issue right now in this country. We don't have enough people who want to work. Workforce development is a real thing, and we're not developing it, frankly. We cannot find enough people who even want to work. Okay. I forget all the statistics about this right now, but there's a huge percentage of people who are eligible to work right now that are going, nah, don't have to.
Don't have to.
Don't want to, don't care to, don't have to. But yet you want the services, you want the things that are out there. And then you're aggravated when you have bad service or you can't get the thing that you want. And then you wonder why. So it's irony is not even the best word I can think of. Yeah. So there is a huge issue in our country right now of work ethic, frankly. Care, concern, we're missing it. We're missing it really big. We could do a whole other podcast on that.
We really could.
But
I think one last thing I wanted to say to you and just compliment you as just such an amazing businesswoman. But I think you did such a good job with your girls with letting them see the work ethic in you. And I think that that's just something like everybody should take note on. And if we did more of that, take your kids to work. Show them that, you know, this is a priority in life. And I think that the kids, that might change the generations.
Oh, agreed.
So
I think if you had Addison and Shelby here, they'd also tell you not only were they grateful that I made them do that, and it pushed them out of their comfort zone.
100%.
You know, in some cases. And Shelby, she worked part-time at the museum when that was still okay. She was downstairs doing ticketing, and then she'd work part-time bussing tables in the restaurant. And then Addison, her first job was actually at a local consignment shop. She loves fashion and all that sort of thing, and she helped people put their outfits together, and, you know, all of those things. But they also would tell you very quickly that the payoff of knowing I got it done. The second part of that is what I made them do is when they started to let me know, I think I might like to do this when I go to college. I want to study this, or I want to be in this field. Then I started taking them in high school and putting them with people I know in those jobs and said, would you allow my daughter to career shadow you for a day?
So they know and they don't have to waste time trying to figure it out. Yeah.
That's incredible.
And did it for them all the way even through college as they kind of figured out what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
Addison
told her to
can
come
tell
in
you.
here.
I did. Addison can tell you I sent her down with numerous different attorneys, all different types of attorneys when she said she wanted to be a lawyer. And she's been wanting to be a lawyer since she was a little girl, mostly because of my father. And then Shelby started off thinking she wanted to be in nursing. And she has the grit to do it, but I knew academically it might be a little bit more of a challenge when she got to chemistry and anatomy, and that did prove to be true. But she worked really hard, and still it wasn't her jam. And so she called me crying, you know, what do I do now? And I said, I'll tell you exactly what you're going to do. You're going to go to your advisor, take a career assessment test. She goes, I want to take another test. And I said, it's not about that kind of test, babe. Just do it, and it'll tell you what you're naturally drawn to. I've told that story. I can't tell you how many times I've told that to high school and college students. please do it.
That's wonderful advice, actually. I mean, I don't think that they talk about that enough.
They don't.
I don't even know if that was an option for the kids that I've heard of.
And guess what? I did it when I was in college. I went to college just knowing I was going to be a music teacher because music's been my life always. I actually taught children at church and kids choir, and I thought, okay, well, that's just what I do. It's my thing. I love music. I figured out after one semester that was not what I was to do. And then I thought, now what do I do? I don't know what else I'm good at. I didn't, because that was really everything. I mean, I couldn't go fly airplanes for a living, I didn't think, because that really wasn't probably the thing, even though that's what I did with Dad. That just didn't appeal to me to fly a commercial jet. That was not something that was on my mind. Anyway, so I went to my advisor, and I said, I don't know what I need to do. And they gave me a career assessment. And when it came back, it said business, marketing, leadership, management, all these things. I was like, really? So that's what I did.
Proves to be true.
And it proved out to be the right thing. And so I did that with Shelby, and hers came back business, marketing, human resources, leadership, management. She goes, well, I guess the apple didn't fall from the tree.
A little spitting image, huh?
And I said, well, I'm sorry about that for you, honey. And so I said, what do you think? And my mother was in human resources for the United States Army. She worked at Fort Knox. Wow. And she said, I think I want to do HR. And I said, well, get after it. And so that's what she did, minored in business, landed a job at HCA right out of college, and the rest is history. And she eventually realized she really wanted to do her own thing, and so now she's running her own photography business, killing it. I mean, just slaying it.
I love this.
But all those business principles, and eventually I said, you know, you're going to wind up with employees. And she goes, oh, I'm already thinking about it, Mom.
Which just brings on a whole other thing.
It does. And then, you know, with her HR background and all those other things. So it is fun to watch. But the point of me telling all that story is that if you don't engage with your kids early on about life, about career, work, and fun, then they don't know.
No.
They got to learn it from you.
Absolutely.
You got to learn it from somewhere, and you don't want it to be from social media.
No.
And so in my honest opinion, one of the reasons why we have such a workforce issue is people think what they see on social media is how you make it happen. And that's not what it is. So until you give them the real dose of reality, we're going to continue to have this as an issue. We need to have more social media channels that are actually showing professionals at work and what it takes to be in those positions. Right. We have a whole generation that think you just wake up one day and you're successful.
No, they need the good, the bad, the ugly.
So
all of it.
They do. They need to see some reality.
All day long. So I appreciate your compliment.
I think you're incredible.
And
I do too.
Well, I hope so. There's been plenty days that I went to bed crying, thinking I was a terrible mother.
I'm sure we all go through those days.
Absolutely, we do. But if again, you just keep getting up and figuring it out. And as I told the girls, you know, you guys didn't come with an instruction book. Some days I wish I had had one.
No manual.
No manuals. Lots of phone calls to my mom, talking to other moms, other single moms, other not single moms. And the networking in that part of your life along with your professional life, because guess what? You actually have two professions. You're a professional mom. You're a professional at whatever work you're doing. And then don't forget to be that professional wife, too.
Yes.
So it's, and then your friends, and then you just keep adding it on. But
all the buckets.
It's interesting how you have to think about the people you surround yourself with that motivate you, that understand you, that are willing to give you grace when you need it, and be hard on you when you need that, too. So.
Balance.
I could sit here and talk to you all day long.
Thank you so much.
You're
for
the best,
coming
Sharon.
on.
I mean, seriously, like that was just.
I know.
That was so much good stuff, and I feel like everybody that's listening is they're gonna have so many valuable lessons from that. So just appreciate your time and all your knowledge. And I mean, you and I could sit. I'd love to just sit and have coffee all day and talk to you. I really would. I just love these conversations.
Me too. They're fun.
Thank you
And
for
you're
making
so
the
sweet
time.
and such a powerhouse and
Oh,
something to look up to for sure. I mean, I know why your
Absolutely.
daughters are so strong. I
Well,
obviously they have such a great role model. So
I sure appreciate that. Thank you.
We appreciate you for coming and share your love to your family for me.
Absolutely. I can't wait for this to come out so I can send it to the girls.
I know.
Yeah, and we'll share it and do all the things we can do to get more people to know about your podcast and what you're doing.
Well, awesome.
Thank you
so much.
So again, thank you to Sharon. She was here today with us. So as always, please share, like, subscribe, send the love.
And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.